do is icebreaker speech, a 5 to 7 minute icebreaker, an intriguing title, similar to Augusta, Masters, Center of the Universe. So please welcome Jess Reinman speaking on the Center of the Universe.
Thank you. You can take that. Have you ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? Everyone loves that movie, and it's just because of that movie that everyone believes that the center of the United States is in Kansas. And everyone also believes that the center of the universe is in Kansas. But just like the North Pole, which is no longer the astronomical spot to reference, instead it's 2 stars nearby, the center of the United States is in Nebraska. And the center of the universe, Nebraska. And I'm going to prove it to you. If you conceptually think about it, there's Texas down here, there's Alaska there, and you draw a line, goes through Nebraska. And then if you take, what is it, that abacus thing? No, it's whatever. The little thing with the pencil on it that always broke. If you take Maine and Florida and you take Hawaii and you stick the needle right in the middle and draw that circle, the middle of the United States is Lincoln, Nebraska. And that's, by the way, where I was born. Yeah. And 50 years ago, Lincoln, Nebraska was considered the top 10 place to live and raise a family. And 50 years ago, just by coincidence, I was living in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, in Lincoln, my parents decided to have 4 children. And that for some reason, they knew they were going to all be boys. And they decided the names ahead of time, something very unique. John, Joel, Jess, and James. All J's, all biblical names. And they started with John. And, he skinned his knee. They'd take care of it, put the ointment and the Band-Aid. And he always got the new clothes. Then Joel appeared. Same thing, he'd skin his knee, hurt his arm. They'd fix it and give him new clothes. And then when they got to me, they just abandoned everything. I got all the used clothes. And whenever I skinned my knee, they just said, suck it up. Don't, stop crying, my dad would say. And he was right. But the greatest thing about living in Nebraska at that time is that on Saturday, my parents would open the door and the kids, we'd all run out. We'd ride our bicycles. We'd play ball, basketball, build forts, have snow fights, and just enjoy life. We were free to do anything we wanted. There was only one rule. One rule is that you had to come home at 4:30 to eat dinner, latest 5. Well, we kids never had Timex watches or, cell phones to figure out what time it was, and we weren't ever going to ask. So my parents decided to come up with a way to contact us, and it's the precursor. I can say my parents were the precursors of cell phones. They came up with the cowbell. And so when 4:30 rolled around, they would ring the cowbell. And it caught on so well in the neighborhood, just like cell phones did when they came out, that everybody had a cowbell. All my friends had a cowbell ringing to send them home, which was great because when it started ringing, I'd say, Paul, your parents are calling you home. And he'd say, Jess, no, I think that's your parents. And guess what happened? All that confusion, all that spam and texting, kind of thing, we just had to ignore it and continue playing till 9:30 or 10 at night. And I'd get home. The meal was already put away. Maybe some leftovers, but I could always go to my Fruit Loops and finish, fill myself up before going to bed. Now let's go forward a little bit. Now I've just told you about how wonderful it is to live in Nebraska. And most of you probably have not lived in Nebraska, but you have tasted a little bit of Nebraska. And I'm going to explain to you now how you can participate in being a Nebraskan. And this is it. When you're driving around San Diego, and if you happen to come up to a car with a Nebraska license plate, you have permission to honk your horn and wave. And the people will probably wave back at you because they think you're from Nebraska. And if for some reason they forget, the honk permission that we all have from Nebraska, they forget that and come over to your window and knock and you roll it down, you say, I know someone from Nebraska. And you know what will happen next? They're going to invite you to their house for a barbecue, corn. You can bring your kids and you can go in the swimming pool. So if you want to be part of Nebraska, just honk at anyone that has this license plate. Well, you probably don't know that Nebraska is also the corn capital, Mecca of the universe. All corn comes from Nebraska. And you've probably seen this hat worn at Nebraska football games. Okay? Right? It's made out of corn, and it's actually edible if you get hungry. Now, you might say to yourself, who would wear this silly hat? But it's not true. I've seen people in the front row of my church wearing this cap. As long as you're from Nebraska, it's acceptable to wear this at church. Now, I want to tell you one more thing. That corn, that high fructose corn syrup that is in every food in America and around the world, which came from Nebraska, is sustaining your life as we are here at Del Mar Toastmasters. So you can thank Nebraska for your every breath. Your every breath comes from Nebraska. Lastly, if you want to, again, participate in becoming a Nebraskan, you can go online and order like caps and knee pads and shoes. And if you like, even you can order gloves. But if you order a Nebraska glove and it doesn't fit, then you need to leave because you're not a Nebraskan. The end.